and welcome back to my channel. My name is Chantel, and today I'm going to be doing my March reading wrap-up. So I have a lot. I read 10 books in March. I'll probably put my stats from Storygraph up on the screen as I have the past couple of months, because Storygraph does these wonderful little monthly wrap-up sheets, the same way that a lot of apps do, like a yearly wrap-up. And I think that's really cool. So yeah, I did read 10 books in March, which seems like a lot, but also several of the books I read in March were quite short. They were like in the 200 or fewer page range. So I read several like novellas and things in March. Pure coincidence, that's just kind of how things panned out for me in March. So while the number of books went up, I think like the number of pages that I read, probably the number of words that I read or listened to, was probably pretty much the same as what it's been in previous months. Like, I think I'm going at a pretty steady rate so far this year. And so I think I still probably read like 2,700 pages total in the month of March, which I think is pretty much on a par with what I've been doing. So with that having been said, I do have 10 books to talk about. Well, actually 11, so I should probably get started. Because first and foremost, I did have one DNF in the month of March. I regret to inform all of you that I did DNF Last Argument of Kings by Joe Abercrombie. Now, there's a few reasons for this. First and foremost, I want to say this is probably not a hard DNF. I will probably come back to it at some point and finish it. But I started trying to listen to the audiobook, and again, this is not a slight on the audiobook of this book. It's perfectly good. I, in fact, quite enjoy the narrator of these audiobooks. I just couldn't do one that long. I don't have the attention span for it, and my job is getting much busier. I'm taking on a lot more responsibility at work, so I'm having less time to listen to audiobooks, and so a 27-hour-long audiobook is just not something I have the attention span for right now, or possibly ever again, frankly. I think I'm probably going to have to keep the audiobooks shorter going forward. And so I did have to DNF it. And also, like, I do admit, I am not impressed by the character arcs in this book. I'm fine with a slow burn plot. I read Robin Hobb. I think Robin Hobb is one of my favorite authors. I love a slow burn, character-driven kind of story, but I don't feel like most of these characters in the First Law trilogy are really going anywhere. I don't see it. I don't see the movement in terms of the character arcs. If it's taking me until a third of the way through the third book in the trilogy, and I'm still not really seeing any character movement, I consider that to be a problem. I like Glocta well enough. I like Logan Ninefingers well enough. I like Farrell well enough. I like them all well enough, I guess, as characters. Like, they're fine, but none of them are doing anything different. Like, they're all just sort of doing the same thing, spinning their wheels, as far as I can tell, through this whole trilogy. Not a lot is happening to me, like, in terms of, again, this is primarily in terms of character development. I just don't see much happening. And to me, if a book is going to be that slow burn of a plot, it should not be that slow burn of a character development thing. Because as far as I'm concerned, like, I don't know what even to say about it. It feels like a lot of nothing is happening. Feels like a lot of nothing. And I just, at some point I'll get back to it and finish Last Argument of Kings, but I'm not sure I'm going to continue reading Joe Abercrombie after this, because I'm just not sure he does it for me. I just don't think he does it for me very much. He's a decent enough writer. There's nothing necessarily wrong with the way that he writes. And his characters are good and interesting, but I also need a character to be growing and changing in some way, whether they're becoming better or worse or just different over time. There needs to be something going on, right? Especially if you're going to have one of these really, really slow burn plots in terms of that, like the actual action of the story. Like, you can't just do no plot, very little plot, and very little character development, at least like for me, in order for something to work for me. So, as I said, I'll probably come back to it in print at some point and finish reading Last Argument of Kings. And then if I get to the end of that and I have a significant change of heart, maybe I'll continue reading Joe Abercrombie. But at this point, there's a lot of other authors and books that I'm much more excited about. And so I don't really see that being a super high priority for me going forward in the future. So that's that about that. Now let's talk about the books I did finish, again, of which there were 10 in March. The first book I finished in March was, of course, Chain Gang All-Stars by Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah. I'm not going to say too much about that in this video because I did do a full video discussion review. I call them reviews, though I don't know that they're really necessarily reviews. They're just me talking about books that I'm reading at more length. So I'll just probably link to that video if you want to see my more detailed thoughts on this book. I loved it. It's great. I think it feels kind of important, especially if you're someone who doesn't know much about how the the criminal justice system in America works and how racist it is and how broken it is. This is actually a good book for that. It is fiction. It is a sort of near future dystopian book, but it's not that far off of what actually happens in our current system as it actually exists. And in fact, there are even footnotes in this book with real statistics about real, like, incarceration rates and things like that in America in the present day. So yeah, it's a very good book. Highly recommended. Then the second book I read in March is actually a Star Wars book. So I read this new Star Wars book that just came out. As you can see, it's called Reign of the Empire, The Mask of Fear by Alexander Freed. This is the first in a new trilogy. So yeah, this Reign of the Empire is going to be a trilogy. I believe the other two books are going to both be written by different authors. Let me see, as I believe he includes them in his acknowledgments at the end of the book. Yes, Rebecca Roanhorse and Fran Wilde are going to be the other two authors. I, of course, have read other things by Rebecca Roanhorse, so I'm very much looking forward to that. I've not read anything else by Fran Wilde, so that is also something I'm looking forward to. So, right, Star Wars. I haven't read a Star Wars book in a while. I've been feeling a little bit down on Star Wars lately in general. It's been a feeling that's been, it's been a sense that I've had for a while now, but that I've been able to set aside for the most part, is a sense that the people involved in making Star Wars are more interested in catering to a very specific and very toxic kind of fan who is not me. And in so doing have kind of thrown me and my friends who are like me under the bus in terms of Star Wars fandom. Canceling The Acolyte after one season when it was full of possibility and promise was really a big downer. And it really felt like caving to that very specific kind of toxic, racist, misogynist fanboy. And it has kind of put me off Star Wars. But then this book was announced, and this is exactly my kind of thing in Star Wars. First and foremost, it's written by Alexander Freed. If you've watched my video that I made last year about Star Wars books and should you read them, I'm sure I definitely hyped up Alexander Freed, and particularly his Alphabet Squadron trilogy, which he wrote a couple years ago. I love that trilogy. I've read pretty much everything Star Wars that Alexander Freed has written, and I really, really, really like it every single time. It's all extremely good. And so anytime Alexander Freed writes a Star Wars thing, I'm gonna be there with bells on. And this is no different. So this is, and in addition to that, this is like very much, this ticks a lot of my boxes, right? This is set during the early part of the Empire, so we're like just after Revenge of the Sith, right? Which is, the Empire is just really getting started, and we're following primarily Mon Mothma, Bail Organa, and Saw Gerrera, who are three characters that I am very intensely invested in. And it's a sort of a political thriller about the three of them, and it's got a lot of different threads going on, but it's really about sort of the very, very, very beginnings of the rebellion through the eyes of these three characters who are going to be three of the main architects of the rebellion. But they're not there yet, right? So this is sort of how they're going to get there. And so I really enjoyed this book. I had a lot of fun with it. I gave it 4 stars. Great stuff. The thing that Freed does that's really good, that I really, really like, is he really delves into the psychology of characters, particularly characters who've dealt with traumatic events, right? So in this book in particular, Mon Mothma is very traumatized and is dealing with the trauma of some things that happened to her. I'm not going to go into too much depth and detail of spoilers, but it's a really key element of her characterization in this book, and I really, really liked that. Alexander Freed does that very well. It's like a particular thing about Freed that I find very compelling in his writing, and he does a really good job of that in this book in particular. So really liked this book. If you're all into Star Wars stuff, if you like Andor, which of course is coming back this month for its second and final season, this is definitely sort of along those lines. Like, if you, it's a very much, if you like Andor, you'll like this, or if you like this, you'll like Andor kind of situation. So yeah, highly recommend this. It's very good. And the next book I read in March is a self-pubbed book called Dionysus in Wisconsin by E.H. Lupton. This was very fun. I enjoyed it a lot. It's a queer, historical, urban fantasy thing. It's set in Wisconsin, and I think Madison, Wisconsin, sort of around the U of W Madison campus in the 60s during the Vietnam War. But it's also got magic and demons and gods and other things in it. And it also has a queer romance at the center of it as well. So it's kind of a romance fantasy, or romantic. I guess you might call it a romantasy. I don't know. I don't know what we're calling things these days. I'm not too worried about it. But it was quite enjoyable. I think I gave it like a 3.75 stars. I like knocked off another quarter of a star because it's self-pubbed, there's some like typos and spelling mistakes in it that, you know, I thought were kind of like, it's a kind of a bare minimum bar you need to be crossing, even if you're self-pubbed. But it was really fun. I really like the characterization in it. It's kind of about a guy who, he I guess you might call him something like a medium or something. He can communicate with the dead, and he uses this ability to help people, to help solve problems. You know, he's kind of a private investigator type thing, a magical private investigator. And he discovers that someone called Dionysus is going to be a problem or something. It's hard for me to explain without giving away too many spoilers for the plot. So, and I don't want to do that because it's one of those books where you kind of want to read it. And so he meets this guy, who's, yeah, his given legal name is Dionysus, and he seems to be attracting a lot of weird stuff, and he's got, and our other main character, Ulysses, his name is Ulysses, he has to try to figure this out before it's too late, kind of situation. And also he and Dionysus are falling in love with each other too. So it's a very fun book. It's a first in a series, so I'll probably continue the series because I definitely enjoyed it. So yeah, that's Dionysus in Wisconsin by E.H. Lupton, and I definitely recommend that one. Next up in March, I had a Discworld interlude with pyramids this time. So this, of course, is by Terry Pratchett. This one is really fun. I think this one might be a little bit underrated and easily forgotten. I think in large part because it's not really connected to any of the sort of main sub-series of the Discworld. It's kind of a standalone within the Discworld in some sense. And also, this is the one that came out just before Guards, and Guards definitely overshadows it quite a bit. But this was really fun. I enjoyed this. The main character of this is he's the heir to basically the an Egypt comp, small kingdom on a river in a desert with pyramids kind of thing. And he's trained at the Assassin's Guild, but then suddenly his dad dies and he has to go back and be the pharaoh or whatever, the god king of his little kingdom. And a lot of nonsense with the pyramids is going on and the magic of the pyramids, and there's some timey-wimey stuff, and there's also the greatest mathematician in the entire Discworld, who is a camel, named, I believe it is You Bastard, is the name of the camel. So yeah, it's a really great, it's a really fun little read. Yeah, I don't know that I have a whole lot to say about this one, except that it's fun. And now my next read in the Discworld is Guards, and can't wait for that, because Guards is one of my favorites. So yeah, that was Pyramids by Terry Pratchett. And then I did get to a classic in March. I read Agnes Grey by Anne Bronte. So I had never read Anne Bronte before. I've read Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, and I've read Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, but I've never read anything by Anne. So yeah, I just picked up Agnes Grey. It's very short, little novella, and I really enjoyed it. Agnes Grey is, it's about a woman who goes off to be a governess, right? It's yet another Victorian governess novel. It's sort of a coming-of-age novel. It's not nearly as gothic or as weird or complex as either Wuthering Heights or Jane Eyre. This is a pretty straightforward, sort of almost realist novel about a young woman who has to endure a lot of nonsense from the people who employ her, the families that she is employed with, and the children that she is expected to teach as a governess. There is a little bit of a romance in this, which was really cute, and it ends on a very nice, hopeful note. And yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. I definitely wanted to. I do not advocate for corporal punishment for children, but some of the children that she was expected to teach in this book, I definitely wanted to smack. But yeah, the language is lush, as all the other Brontes. So this was a very readable, very enjoyable time. I had a good time with it. So yeah, that's Agnes Grey by Anne Bronte. Next up, I read Alien Clay by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This one was really an interesting read for me. I picked this up for the Judge a Book by its Cover prompt for the 2024 Our Fantasy Bingo board. So I did hard mode on that prompt, which means that I purchased this book only based on the cover, only based on this information. I did not read the back blurb. I did not read anything about the book or learn anything about the book. Everything was based on just this. And so I didn't really know what I was going to get into with this. And then I found out what it was, and I really enjoyed myself. I thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed this book. This is my first Adrian Tchaikovsky. Adrian Tchaikovsky is an author that's been on my radar for a while. I've been meaning to read something of his for a while. And so when I found this book and this cover, which is really cool, and pretty, I was like, heck yeah, I'll just do this. So, yeah, this did not disappoint. In fact, it far exceeded my expectations because I basically had none. What this is about is, this book rather skillfully combines a couple of things that I don't often see combined in a book, and does it very well. First of all, this is a dystopian novel, in which an authoritarian government has taken over, is ruling the entire earth, and political dissidents get sent to these very harsh colonies. They're basically penal colonies to do work and to die. Basically. So if you're a political dissident, you get caught, they literally ship you off to these other planets, where you are expected to die pretty quickly. These planets are largely very hostile. Our main character is one of these political dissidents. He's been caught, he's been arrested, and he's been deported, essentially, right? So he's been deported to this colony world called, it's known as Kiln. And our main character is, his name is Arton, and he's basically a xenoecologist, right? So he knows about this stuff, and this world that they go to is full of life, but it is very, very different life than life on Earth. And there's a lot of body horror involved in this. And yeah, so this combination of it's very political, dystopian kind of story about figuring out how to fight back against an oppressive authoritarian regime. And also there's all this stuff about the alien life on this planet, how it works, and a mystery of what seemingly is an alien civilization that left ruins behind on this planet that they're trying to study and figure out. And there's a lot of body horror elements and things going on, and trying to figure out how does life even work on this planet. The life on this planet is very symbiotic. So there's smaller organisms that all sort of come together to create larger seeming organisms that all work together in different ways, and it's very recombinatory, and it's really interesting. So I really loved every aspect of this, and the ending of this is really fun. Like, I just had a good time with this. I blew through it, and the writing was quite good, so I'm definitely on board so far with Adrian Tchaikovsky, and I'm definitely going to be coming back to Adrian Tchaikovsky. So yeah, that's Alien Clay. I think I gave it 4.5 stars on Storygraph. It was not sure how memorable it's going to be in the long term. It might get bumped up to a 5 at some point, but this is quite good. I liked it a lot. Then I went right from one kind of alien body horror-y type thing into another, because then I read Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. This one, it might have been because I was part of it was because I was trying to read it when I was sick, but I don't know that it really stuck with me. I think it's well written. I think it's very well written. I am picking up what Vandermeer is putting down for sure in terms of the big ideas of what's happening here. And he's definitely a good writer, and I enjoyed the writing. There was a bit of this that I just didn't connect with our main character. I had a really hard time finding any kind of emotional connection to anything that was happening in this book. And so I ended up giving this like a 3.75 stars because like I enjoyed my time with it. It was well written. I like the ideas and the themes in it, but I just had a really hard time feeling emotionally invested in what was going on for most of the time that this book was happening. And I'm not sure why exactly. I'm not sure, because we do definitely get into the backstory and the history of our protagonist in this book a lot, and she's a very self-introspective, but I don't know, something about her voice, maybe, as it's in first person, you're reading like her journal basically. I'm not sure that I just, for some reason, I didn't find that connection. So this got a 3.75 stars for me. It's quite good. It's well written. There are definitely people that I would recommend this book to. But yeah, again, I'm not sure the emotional connection was there. I might try the second book in this series and see if, because Annihilation itself was quite short. It didn't take me long to read it. So maybe I'll get more out of the next book in the series. We'll see. I definitely did like his writing, though. I like Vandermeer's writing. It's quite good. Then I read The Dead Cattail Assassins by P. Djeli Clark. This has been on my radar for about a year now. I read and really enjoyed A Master of Jinn by P. Djeli Clark, which is the other fantasy book that he's written. This is not set in the same world as A Master of Jinn. This is set in a totally secondary world type fantasy setting. I enjoyed this one. I think the dialogue in this book is very quippy. And there were times when it kind of crossed a line for me into maybe a little bit too quippy, maybe a little bit too twee in terms of the dialogue. If you don't know, The Dead Cattail Assassins, it's a novella. It's quite a short novella. Our main character is a titular dead cattail assassin. And basically what these are undead assassins. They're in service to a god of assassination. And they have no memories of their lives, right? When they were alive. They don't have any memories of that. They only know this life, this undead life, where they are well-trained assassins. And our main character is given a contract to kill someone through her guild, and she quickly discovers that this contract is much more complicated than it seemed at first. And she has one night basically to figure out how to get out of this weird situation that she has found herself in. And I don't want to go into any more detail than that, because that might constitute spoilers, and this is definitely one of those books where it's also quite short. It's only about 180 pages or something like that. So like it's definitely one of those books where you should probably just go into it and just read it and just experience it, because as the plot unfolds, it gets a little bit trippy and complicated and weird, but in a fun way. But yeah, I will say the dialogue is quite quippy. The dialogue is quite contemporary. It's quite quippy. It's definitely I hate to use the word Whedon-esque, but it's Whedon-esque dialogue, and I think there's some contexts in which that works for me, and sometimes I'm just like, why are you talking like that? Do you really have to do that? I don't like. There's some characters that are literally in the context of the book called edgelords, and I'm like, I get it, like I get the joke, but also it was unnecessary. Otherwise, it's a fun book, and I do like P. Djeli Clark's writing. Like in general, his writing is quite good, and I enjoy it. So I gave it a 3.75 stars because it's fun. I enjoy P. Djeli Clark's writing. I like the characters and the characterizations. I like what's going on. The dialogue can be a little bit quippy for me sometimes. So that's a very much a your mileage may vary kind of situation. 2 books left. Next, I read Mammoth at the Gates by Neve Vo. So this is the 4th book in the Singing Hills cycle. I gave this 5 stars. I think this book in particular, because of what it's about and because of the themes that it's dealing with, really hit me in a very personal place, which is why I gave it 5 stars. Sometimes a book just hits you in a very specific and very personal way that I just can't give it anything other than 5 stars, and that's what happened with me with Mammoths at the Gates. Mammoths at the Gates largely is dealing with loss, grief, and just sort of change over time, change and growth over time. And these are things that, in some ways, hit very close to home for me, particularly the grief stuff and the mourning stuff and how we deal with loss. And so, yeah, it was really good, and I had to give it 5 stars. Again, Nevo always impresses me. I love her writing. Her writing is great. I've read several books by Nevo at this point, and every time she's a hit for me. Yeah, it's just this one, again, it went over that line into, like, just really doing it for me on the heart level, and so I ended up giving it 5 stars. Great book. And then, finally, the very end of March, I did manage to get done my first nonfiction of the year and my contribution to the Historathon Quarter 1. So I read The Missing Thread, A Woman's History of the Ancient World by Daisy Dunn. And yeah, I was working on this for most of the month because I just was taking my time with it and just reading bits and pieces of it here and there. I quite like this. Daisy Dunn is a classicist. She's written A Life of Pliny. She's also written some stuff about Catullus. And so she knows her classical poetry quite well. Yeah, I think this is an interesting project. What this is that this is not like a rewriting of ancient European history. What this is sort of taking the sort of known narrative trajectory of the ancient classical world and threading through it the female perspective on some of these things, right? Which can be difficult to do because obviously the historical record is pretty scarce on women's voices for most of this period of time, either because there just isn't much left of some of these civilizations at all, and or because, like, some of these civilizations are very heavily patriarchal and therefore did not value the perspectives, ideas, opinions, or intelligence of women, and so they kind of get erased. So it's a tough project to undertake, but I also think it's worthwhile in general. And I think she generally does a quite good job of it. I ended up giving it 4 stars, which is my sort of default rating for a book that I enjoyed and thought was worth my time and thought was good. Did it wow me? I don't know that it wowed me, right? Which is why it only has 4 stars instead of 5. It's not necessarily a book that I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a revelatory. But she definitely adds in some interesting perspectives and definitely finds ways to emphasize the perspective of women because, right, the point of this is that, like, women have always been there. Women have always had a role in history. And, you know, we're half of the population, right? We're half the human population, basically. And so we're there if you can just take the time and the effort to find us and, you know, trying to work through our perspectives on this in terms of, you know, how are women affected by the various kinds of, the political conflicts that are going on at this time, right? And how are women both being affected by and also helping to affect the outcomes of some of these events, right? in various ways, because we're your mothers, we're your daughters, we're your sisters, we're your wives. And so, of course, we are having an effect on this stuff. So yeah, it was quite a fun read, I think. It's certainly enlightening in parts. It's definitely a 5,000-foot overview. It's, you know, it's only about 400 pages long, and it covers, you know, thousands of years of history, mostly European and Middle Eastern. But yeah, I thought it was definitely worth my time. I enjoyed it, and it's very readable, and it's very good, and yeah, I think it's a really good sort of introductory kind of text. So that is my March reading. 10 whole books and a DNF that I'll probably come back to at some point. Yeah, that's what I got. My next video will definitely be a pile of possibilities for the new Our Fantasy bingo board that just came out this week. I'm still sort of working through it and trying to figure out some stuff for some of the prompts, but it's quite an interesting bingo board, and I'll probably have a lot to say about that, so that'll be my next video. But yeah, did you read any of the books that I talked about in this video? What was your best read for the month of March? My best read for the month of March was probably Mammoths at the Gates, or Alien Clay. Both of those are really good, but I had a great reading month in March. Had a lot of fun and got a lot more upcoming. So yeah, leave a comment if you want, like, subscribe to this video, and we'll see you in the next one.